Trans women are women in the same way that a seahorse would be a horse if a cis horse was a concept. Trans women are women in the same way that a seahorse would be a horse if a cis horse was a concept. A seahorse would be a horse if a cis horse was a concept. As a concept, cis horse was a concept. Cis horse was a concept. Trans women are women in the same way that a seahorse would be a horse if a cis horse was a concept. Trans women are women in the same way that a seahorse would be a horse if a cis horse was a concept.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good happy Saturday or Sunday, whatever's going on. This is Tara Van Dyke, Perfs Slayer, my new nickname. This is the Morbid Symptoms podcast. And yeah, thank you all for joining us. I just got an error message from Rumble, so whatever. But we are live on the Morbid Symptoms podcast channel account on X, and also my personal account that's now changed to Doctress Tara Perfs Slayer. You know, because you gotta, every time I win against one of these paper tigers, my ego just grows, Rebel. So I'm just like,
yeah.
Who knows? I might I might get my son to make an AI image of me with Xena, like holding some sort of, some sort of body count, but not in a sexual way. Okay. Anyway, so
the
sorry.
traditional murdering way.
yeah, just like. Yeah. So anyway, this is Rebel Flying Spaghetti Gender, aka Rebel of Empires. Is his YouTube channel.
Yep.
And he's also known as the Flying Spaghetti Gender. So, of course, before we get into anything, we're gonna have to clarify what our preferred pronouns are, and I don't know what kind of pronouns the Spaghetti Gender is into. So please tell me: is it Zer? Is it Spag? Is it, I don't want to have any hate crimes.
Yeah. I don't know. Telepathic, I think, are my pronouns. So
telepathic? Okay.
Yeah, I'll just be upset and you cycle through whatever, and eventually I think those are my pronouns.
Yeah, I'll just try to deal with incongruence as best as I can for you. Anyway, okay, so thank you for joining. You're a hoot.
Yeah, no worries. I'm excited to do this.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, this is Rebel. Do you want to say a couple, just kind of give a bit of an overview about how you got into the whole sex gender struggle and how that morphed into your
whatever it is I'm doing now.
Zionism critique, shall we say? And also,
sure.
So just give a bit, and then we'll just start off the roll. The first thing we're going to do, Rebel and I are just going to have a bit of an interview about his work in this area. And then we're going to, in the second part, we're going to have some fun. We're going to put up some of what the actual flip or fuck, sorry. By the way, I'll probably curse throughout this just because the world's on fire, and if anybody's offended by my cursing, I do apologize. Let me know, and I'll try to keep that in mind next time, and I'll use the words I used to use when my kids were really young, like what the flip flop, what the this type of stuff. Anyway, so Rebel, please give the Morbid Symptoms small but mighty community a little bit of an intro into what you're on about. What's going on?
Sure. So I started like politically organizing when I was about 17. Joined like one of the socialist groups in Australia,
Mhm.
and got pretty involved in that. Um, as you might imagine, seeing me now. Um, so
That's a regalia, man.
yeah,
Oh.
like that was during the, like, I just sort of came in when, so Seattle, the WTO Seattle kind of thing had just happened, and we had an action actually which was on September 11th, the year before September
Oh.
11th. And it was a huge, really good demonstration where like the World Economic Forum, I think it was using the Crown Casino in Melbourne to hold a meeting. And there was a lot of activists, but kind of, I think in a way that wasn't really achieved in Seattle. The unions were really brought into it. So there were like really big, like picket lines, thick, like things that they were able to effectively shut down the thing. Anyway, so that was very exciting for
I was there at
17-year-old.
the WTO thing in Seattle.
Oh, were you?
Oh yeah. No, I mean
Yeah,
there's my street cred. Yeah, no, I was.
yeah. I was at Woodstock.
Well, no, I have pictures somewhere. Good lord. But that was before the smartphone, and so there's like some shoebox with, like, when the disposable cameras were the thing. There was like,
Yeah.
who knows where these things are. But no, and actually, just because you mentioned the unions, maybe the unions weren't too involved in it, but the unions actually, there was a UWA union and something else. It might have been, I can't remember. It's probably agriculture because of where I was at school. But they came and had like a sit-in, a teach-in at the university I was at, and saying about why they were, against these trade policies and whatnot. And so a group of us kind of, got together and went down there. I mean, I wasn't where where the shit went down, but I was there because you forget that that everybody's going, and then you have to find a place to park or to make your way from the. And it's like public transportation is that great. So you're trying to get to the barricade and you just can't. You're like, I want to be there. But we did make a solid effort. And then, went to a pub, and it was the whole grunge thing and whatever. So yeah, cool. So you've been active, politically active, and socialist
since that point.
Since teenage years, then. So
yeah.
5 years then, Rebel.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm 40 now, so all the people who were like, of course you're a communist when you're 20, but you won't be when you're 40. Well, I really am that dumb. I'm still a communist.
No, and to the youth out there listening, obviously that's the case. That's people tell you that because that's what happened to them, and they want to make it, like naturalize it, which is fine. I mean, we are in and of a capitalist system, so it is the water around us. But it's the same thing. I remember when I really got into feminism, and I got into feminism and Marxism at uni like the same semester, and so my family was quite conservative and. America love it or leave it, and this type of stuff. It was great at Thanksgivings and whatnot. So people like the male members of my family would be like, I mean, we want you to be happy, and basically telling me like, how are you going to get a man if you're going around talking like this? I was like, well, I don't want one. So everyone was quite shocked about getting married. But it was like, I was 29 when I got married. So it wasn't like it was, they kind of written me off. But, I was like, it's the same things like, oh, yeah. I'm like, okay, uh-oh. They're coming for me. Deep state. No. Who sold us out? There's an infiltrator in our group, Rebel.
Yeah. It wasn't me.
Sure.
Yeah. So,
but
okay.
Right. Go ahead.
Yep. Got involved around that kind of period. Then the next year, obviously, the 9/11 everyone remembers happened, and it obviously changed
Really?
like the political landscape. And then the the campaigns against the war in Afghanistan and the war in Iraq were like the main thing that was probably dominated that kind of period.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was while being involved with that I first kind of came across transgenderism, like probably a good, 10 years maybe before anyone was talking about it. Like, so say mid noughts instead of 2010s. And they, yeah, the way it came up was the group was doing a sort of like educational day, and there was like a thing on feminism, and one of the more like experienced people sort of brought transgenderism up. And I remember like my first reaction was like, but what's to stop me from just like saying I'm really liberate, like, from obviously this is going to get exploited. What
about the woman inside me?
Sorry.
Well, it's like, what about the woman inside me? Maybe I have a woman trapped inside me that
Absolutely.
Wants to come out if I want to go to the bathroom or win a medal.
Yeah, like what's what are you? What's the actual what is the definition if it's not going to be females? And they didn't have an answer when I brought it up, but their immediate thing to do was to like pivot and go like, oh, you don't understand. We were at this conference. I don't know what the conference was. And there were all these like women fighting over this issue. And there were like trans women there, and there were these nasty women who they like who evidently were radical feminists who were saying you're not a woman, you're a man, and pointing at him, and pointing at the trans woman, and how mean is that, was kind of like the answer that I was given for this doesn't make any sense. So for whatever reason, I accepted that like explanation, and I found like things that I'd written sort of around that period where I was like using those terms, but I was still, I guess, super skeptical of it. So I would make fun of it to people when it first sort of like was presenting itself, and most people would laugh along. When in the beginning, because there wasn't that like cultural lockdown of you have to go along with this or you're going to get kicked out of the group. So I know most of the people who are like,
the protection racket wasn't in full swing yet.
yeah. So everyone could see like a lot of the flaws in it. But then at some point, for a little while, I decided that I was going to like not say anything about it, because it had sort of gotten to a point where things were changing so much. I was just kind of like, maybe I don't know like everything, and I'm just gonna like sit it out for a little while and see what happens, and focus on other kind of like political organizing that I wouldn't be able to do if I was super TERF. And that it was interesting and good to have done. But then at a certain point I was like, no, that was a mistake. Like I should have been, criticizing this thing the whole time. And now it's so much further along and people are so much more, indoctrinated into it.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Groomed.
Exactly.
And I know that people always think that they immediately think to the sexual connotation, which of course is the case, but no, I mean, of course, it's easy now to see it looking back from this point, looking back from where we are now, you'd be like, oh Jesus, because it's just like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but go ahead.
Yeah. And so
then I'll share my TERF origin story as well.
Yeah, cool. That'd be great. yeah, so then that sort of started to happen, and then I was like, no, fuck this, I have to like start talking about it. And I did, and eventually like lost a whole bunch of friends. And you just become like you've got the plague, and they can't be near you because they'll have the plague too then. And
Yeah. The
um
cooties. Yeah.
yeah. So then I was just like, okay, fine, let's do this then. And it was an interesting kind of like campaign to get involved in, because at this point I was like, it's so obviously right. And so it was in a lot of ways, it's like one of my attractions to it is just my sheer laziness, and that like
Low hanging fruit.
it's sort of like similar to, it kind of reminds me of the anti Scientology protests that Anonymous would sort of organize. And I remember seeing those and being like, why would you stoop to the level of like even engaging with a Scientologist? Like and like it just seemed like,
Excuse me if I
too
may.
obvious.
Hold on, Rebel. Just want to say that the opinions of our guests don't necessarily reflect the opinions of representatives.
Yeah.
No,
Elron's coming for you now.
Feel free. I'm not. I will. I mean, I don't have. We don't have. We're building up an audience, but I don't plan on being captured by my audience. So if they can't handle what we say, then it's fine. But yeah, I take your point. Sorry, I just wanted to throw in that.
Yeah, no worries.
He's saying that.
Yeah.
I love. What's
So,
the guy's name? Zanu or something, and whatever.
Xenu, yeah.
Xenu, yeah.
Or is that the planet? Yeah, I think that's the planet. I forget what the guy's name is.
I just, there's so many things that we have to know about that we don't want to know about, that we have to be kind of judicious. It's like, I'm not going to worry about autogonophilia, the origins of Zionism, and Scientology. So I can't do all three.
Yeah.
It's like.
Yeah, I can only take so much like cultish sexual abuse research at one time before it gets a bit like intense.
Okay, so
I went to it just because it was like easy, and you could win arguments, because I knew that the people who had picked these ideas up like didn't really know where they had come from. And so then I started doing that, and at some point I kind of pieced together what I thought was happening with the issue in a like thing that I wrote called Money and the Cost of Gender.
Yeah.
Which was essentially like a bit of a, like, it told the John Money story, but then it also like incorporated some of the basic understanding that you would like. It incorporated like Engels and the origins of family, private property, and the state, and that kind of thing in a very like simplified way. But it was all the stuff that I couldn't really understand how the supposed Marxists who are now pro-trans like had seemingly forgotten. Like I didn't know how they were mashing those two ideas together. It seemed like it should have been creating more tension.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is I don't know, what should I do? It's Sunday. We'll be chill, so we can always edit this later, and but yeah, I mean, I'm so fucking pissed off at the Marxists. I mean, and I'm sorry, not all of them, not you, but it's just like, are you kidding me? And I think that I think that in the social media age, and maybe before, that just because you can put anything you want in your bio, yeah. And so people like a revolutionary Marxist or revolutionary anarcho-Marxist, this sort of that, and they have like, then all the flags and, transing I mean, it's so parasitic. Anything can be trans. I mean, just like anything can be deconstructed, it's like you can just kind of like pour through. And so I could see in the academic front why it was so popular, because, you're going to queer every boundary and you're going to deconstruct everything. And it's really iterative. And if it just stayed, in campuses and papers, or, these kind of thought experiments or something, fine. But when it starts coming out, it gets reified, and then you're just like, what? So, and you think like, okay, when someone says trans women are women, that's like a metaphor, okay? They're not literally women. Or if someone says, I feel like I'm a woman in a man's body, or a man in a woman's body, that's them trying to understand their whatever's going on and to convey it to you in a thing that you can understand. You're not meant to take it literally. And if anybody thought for a fucking moment, it totally falls apart. And these people who will be, sorry, I'm throwing it out, these people. But it's like dialectical this and materialist this and this and that, and they want to be, and they anything, and it's also convenient. Oh, it's a culture thing. It's a culture thing. Well, isn't that nice? You can just dismiss it as culture. And where do these culture things come from? You're not going to embed that in a material analysis. What kind of cultural issues pop up or get regarded or cast in that way? You know? And I'm just like, it's crazy. Like, you're a fucking materialist, and you're going to buy into this crazy, radically subjective bullshit. And I'm sorry, you know, I mean, in terms of, I'm not going to say, I don't know what's in somebody's mind and what gives the dingle a tingle or whatever's going on there. That's their business. But it's like this whole thing about we have to now pretend all this stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's just like, what? And it's such a power trip. I mean, you don't want to give people, you know, humans have a totalitarian strain. You don't want to give people and young kids and whatnot pronouns, preferred pronouns. I mean, I have some friends, and I also taught a bit. And you live in fear that you're going to misgender some student that decided 2 weeks ago that they're non-binary, or that they're actually a girl or a boy. I mean, it's like this constant thing. And so I'm like, you know, you should do this whenever you're in school or whatever, you should have everybody write their name down, and then you just use names. I mean, it's just crazy. But anyway, yeah. And so, and then what I really love is when someone will try to like trans Marx and like put something out there. And it's so easy. I'm like, are you really going to tell me that Marx and Engels were confused about who the women were? You're going to have to, I mean, yeah, you can mad lib anything you want. You can, you know, it's like, I think I don't know, all these people come out of comparative literature classes, but I don't know. You know, because one of the things you do, because you have all the theories, you know, you can have deconstruction, you can have Marxism, you can have psychoanalysis, and the four types of feminism, and post-colonial, and new formalism, and all this stuff, and you can apply that to any poem or movie or whatever. But what you're doing is you are using that for material to bolster your understanding of that particular framework of critique. It doesn't really say anything much about the thing in general, you know?
Yeah,
so,
right.
So it's just like, I think they're all this. It's like, yeah, you can trans anything you want. You can deconstruct anything you want. But I'm sorry, I will die on the hill that Marx would have been a TERF, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I didn't even invent this, but like,
and Lenin, and Mao, and all those people, and Rosa Luxemburg, and these people. I don't know if I don't know if the actual Marxists, if there is such a thing, or people who actually, you know, seem to do more than just read a couple of books and think the iconography is cool. I think maybe they just like the membership, so they don't want to piss them off, you know. So that, because you like, you know, and I'm just like,
well, I think it sort of comes out of.
And they use the language, Midwestern Marx, and these people. I'm sorry, these people. You know, some of them, I think they're trying to schmooze it. They'll use the language, you know, gender fluid or gender identity and this and that. And I'm like, why are you talking like the PMC gender speaker? I mean, if you can't push back against this, how do you think you're actually going to bring about the dictatorship of the proletariat? Give me a freaking break.
Yeah, well, I think it's partially that like one thing that I noticed one thing that I noticed when we were like being in a socialist organization was how often like we were doing exactly the same things as the liberals were doing in any kind of given movement, just kind of like slightly less successfully. And I think that sort of comes from the fact that you really like there was a speech I used to like post all the time that Boots Riley gave when he came to Australia, and one of the things that he sort of talked about was how, the communist movement in the US in the 20s was really powerful. And as someone kind of who grew up in the 90s, there was this real romanticization of like the 60s and the idea that was also a very powerful time. But his argument was essentially that the 60s was a regression from like earlier things, particularly because leftists or like Marxists had stopped trying to focus on workers and had switched to students, and students don't have the same power really, I guess, as workers do. And so there's less of a because you have no base of like economic power as a student, like unless you take over the campuses, which is what they're doing, which is great. But other than that, it means you're left to kind of like do voting and bourgeois kind of reform stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, so so just with the Marxists. I mean, I don't know. It's hard because before Israel-Palestine erupted again, at least for us, I mean, it's always ongoing over there. This, and which now that we're dealing with that, it seems, it kind of puts it in a bit of perspective, although there are similarities. I think that when you have this cultural syndrome that tears through everything, and that any gatekeepers who should have been on the watch just kind of fell over one by one, I think that's an important issue and a thing to look at. But I remember thinking, like, who am I more pissed at when it comes to the feminists? These trans-made feminists. these pure feminism doesn't include trans women, which means men who think who lark women basically for whatever reason. Maybe they have a good one. Or the Marxists who just, I mean, and there are a few women in particular, and maybe a couple men as well, who have tried to approach this from a political economy analysis. Try to follow the money, looking at basically saying, if you think this is a grassroots movement, this is all about young kids, all about quote unquote trans kids, you're out of your mind. That doesn't get pushed through every institution at lightning speed. There's something else going on here. So but I was like, I don't know who I'd be more irritated with, or who I am more irritated with. I mean, because there's just so much. Like, either lots of people are a lot more stupid than I thought, or a lot of people will just go along to get along and just pretend, but which is fine. Not fine, but when they totally participate in the cancellation or the dogpiling or the the ostracization, or they don't say anything about that even, but then we'll let people know off the record, this is really crazy what's happening to you, and I also think it's gone too far, but but you're a coward. What are you telling me? And I get it. There's risks. I get it. There's risks. So but it's just like that was really eye opening, and then now that, and then you lose half or more. I hate that word community, but the community or people, like-minded people on the gender ideology thing, who all of a sudden became apparently are all took the IDF tour twice and swallowed it whole. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Well, I guess that kind of brings brings us. Sorry.
I said segue.
Yeah. That sort of brings us up to closer to now. So got involved in that sort of organizing. The thing came along, eventually had to sort of break from everybody, and just started doing this kind of stuff. And then the Kelly J. Keane did her tour of Australia.
Oh yeah.
And I was super excited for that. I had always kind of been a big supporter of hers, even though I could tell she had a lot of conservative beliefs that I wouldn't necessarily agree with. I felt like there was enough of a kind of like separation between Let Women Speak and her personal views that I was like, yeah, I can I supported what she was doing. And so that was kind of an interesting thing, because when she came here, she did like 5 or so stops before she came to Adelaide, and I was at that demo, and I bought this shirt. Speaking of like cheesy iconography, I went and got this like maroon hammer and sickle t-shirt because I wanted to wear it to the Let Women Speak thing, to stand on the Let Women Speak side, so that yeah this is where we are now.
Honestly, I was really pleased with myself when I did this.
Yeah.
I was just cracking up, and my son comes in. He's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, he's like, "Oh my God, Perfs and Terfs. I don't know what's going on." I'm like, "It's okay."
Yeah.
For those of you who may be listening but not seeing it, some top praise for Rebel of Empires, aka Flying Spaghetti Gender. Kelly J. Keane, or aka Posey Parker, tweeted at him. He's a very weird anti-Semitic man. So I think if we ever write a book or anything, that'll be
yeah the caption. There was actually another one before that where she was like, he's obsessive leftist, like blah blah, but she deleted it, so I guess she was going through a few different drafts. But yeah, I like that one. Yeah. So
also,
anyway, before
Rebel,
that happened,
Rebel, if I may,
what's that?
If you see me looking down, I'm not ignoring you, but we have a couple of people in the yard, so they're on the if you go to in the comments, I can see them, and they're chatting.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So if I look down, it's not because I'm ignoring you; it's because I'm.
No worries. Yeah, it's
Please continue. I'm just going to welcome our guests here in the chat room.
Sure. So yeah. We went to the Adelaide one, and the good thing about that was, for whatever reason, halfway through, all the students that were counter-protesting had to leave. And so we got to do the end of the demonstration without anyone interfering. And there were some really great speeches. One in particular is on my channel that people can look up, about a woman whose was like stepdaughter, I think it was they were trying to trans her at the Women's and Children's Hospital. Yeah, so coming out of that, and the media was relatively like, even-handed and that kind of thing. So coming out of that was pretty high hopes. And then we showed up at Melbourne, and I didn't bring my hammer and sickle shirt, which I should have. And then all the stuff that happened at Melbourne happened. I knew the Nazis
That was
were
the
not.
thing with the soup, yeah, and the crowd went just kind of basically. What was the word? Like,
oh yeah, I should explain that probably. Okay, so there was the Melbourne demonstration was always going to be the biggest one, because Melbourne is the wokest city in Australia. It has a strong like union history, and so there's a lot of like NGOs and that kind of thing that operate out of Trades Hall and that kind of thing. So that demonstration took place. When it took place, it was incredibly besieged. There was probably about 150 of us, and maybe
you were
1,000.
there. You were right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my gosh, you're like, okay, people. We have a Morbid Symptoms podcast on the ground correspondent from the kerfuffle in, was it Adelaide?
No, Melbourne.
Sorry, Melbourne. Okay, continue, please, Rebel.
Yeah, so we were, I made a video about this that people can watch, but essentially there were two large groups of counter-protesters that were like really loud, and it sort of gave the feeling of being at a like music concert or something like that, because that's how kind of overwhelming the sound was.
Okay.
and Let Women Speak had been forced to use this one particular spot on Parliament House, and right next to that was a group of like anti-vaxxers who are sometimes negatively referred to as cookers in South Australia.
What is that?
Yeah, cooker, as in their brains are cooked.
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay. A cooker.
Which I sort of, I probably support them quite a bit, but this particular group are like associated with Nazis.
That's not good.
So Let Women Speak weren't allowed to move them on. So they had that demonstration happening right next to Let Women Speak. And then while the Let Women Speak demonstration was in the middle of happening, there was a group that was sending in infiltrators that were like grabbing the mic and throwing paint around, and someone got knocked over and needed an ambulance. So everyone was really like internally focused. And while that was happening, there was also a group of Nazis who no one had anything to do with, didn't like, they were obviously there to kind of steal some limelight or something like that, but no one had interacted with them. But essentially, while Let Women Speak were busy dealing with the infiltrators, this group got as close as they possibly could, and which, in a way that you might not realize looking at it from across the road, but when you were in the Let Women Speak demonstration, everyone's huddled together facing inwards. You don't tend to be like looking out, so the group was actually able to get much closer to us than you might have otherwise expected. Then they took the photos. Then they said everyone there is a Nazi, and they basically just that's what set up Kelly J. Keane for getting mobbed in New Zealand, and Moira Deeming, who is a conservative politician, and she was expelled from her party after the leader of the state branch there basically said she was a Nazi. He's since settled with Kelly J, but he hasn't settled with Moira, so I don't know what the deal is there. But anyway, I made a video about that called What Really Happened at Melbourne Let Women Speak, and Moira Deeming requested that she send it to her lawyers because it does such a thorough job of like breaking down what actually happened.
The sequence of events. Yeah.
Yes. And very much like I compared it to like Kent State or whatever, where there's like a photograph that makes it look like people are casually walking past someone who's shot. And it's just like, if you take a photo of a chaotic event, you can get random different impressions from like isolated photos. So that was kind of like the level that I was involved in this at. And
Sorry. I just we have just, can you see the comment when I put it on?
Oh yeah. He also defamed Angie Jones, one of the organizers. I interviewed her on my show a few months ago, The Bitter Pill. Yeah, he did. And that was awful. She was the most I guess vulnerable person who was targeted relative to Kelly J and Moira, because they have their own sort of platforms and were more often by the media given a chance to respond, whereas because Angie's like just like an activist, they were able to defame her more or without more easily. So that all happened. Then
Bitter Pill, by the way.
What's that?
So say thank you, Bitter Pill, by the way, for
yes, yeah. That's really cool.
Coming. If it's nothing that's going to get me charged with a hate crime, I will put it up on the screen, babies.
Yeah. So then
I almost want to be charged with that so that I can have really a fun time at court. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So then was just turfing out with everyone else. From that period on, until October 7th happened, and then Kelly J. Keane made this video that she deleted, that I managed to grab a copy of before she deleted it, which was her going on this like unhinged, in my opinion, rant about October 7th, and two of the Women's Place UK organisers in particular. So one of them had liked a tweet and then unliked it, but she was still in trouble. So that's how like TRA.
If people are watching you, it's amazing.
Mhm.
I have, who am I? No one knows who I am. I don't have a very big account. But sometimes people will start being like, they Google you and they're like, look, and they'll like throw up some tweet that you liked. You're like, Jesus. It's like, yeah, I liked it. Cool. You want me to like it again?
Yeah.
So just work the wise.
Yeah.
Be careful out there.
So one of them
for a non-genocidal perf. Go ahead.
Yeah. For a GC edgelord. Yeah. So the
you're talking about Kelly J. Keane, and she posted this video and
yeah. Okay. So the first there was one woman who had liked the tweet and unliked it. There was another woman who had said a whole bunch of stuff and then had to like delete her Twitter account afterwards. And so, but essentially like the tweet that had been liked was Hamas did an outstanding attack. Israel will learn lessons. And that was like on the day immediately after October 7th. And so who even knows like how aware of what happened she was when she liked that tweet. But Kelly was on a Kelly J was on a was very upset, a tear. And she the thing that was interesting about it was she didn't just target them. She read out the names of every single person she could that was a member of that organization, and also like what other side projects they were doing. In one case, she even said the like suburb or city that this woman lived in for some reason. I was like, why do we need to know this shit?
And
so
by the way,
evidently,
that was a true statement, that tweet. But anyway, it doesn't mean, and it doesn't mean you have to be, and this is what I think, just to stop you for a second, it's like people don't say, and I get that it's charged, but it's like, you don't have to be excited or really like happy that people are getting, killed or whatever. But, in the abstract, but if you know anything about the situation, you're like, well, what's surprising is that it doesn't happen more regularly. I mean, if they allow them to have any kind of, any kind of anything, it would be a very different situation. So yeah, but it's just the, as they say in Holland, measuring with two cups. So the standard by which anything Israeli is interpreted or seen, totally different from anything that's has to do with Palestinians or Hamas or any non-Israeli country over there. And it's just amazing to me, because just the hypocrisy. They can say anything, they can be so excited about anything Israel, that's fine, but somebody actually is like, well, yeah, the occupied struck back. I mean, it's a and it's just so funny to me. It's like, are people thinking, and then I have to remember that not everybody knows, but maybe some people know and they don't care, or they're for it. It's like, since when was settler colonial apartheid supposed to be like a risk-free lifestyle? I mean,
it's so like the weird thing is like
the music festival. I'm like, that who has a music festival? I mean, it's just, I mean, just for security reasons, but also just tacky. I'm like, I'm going to have a big rave right by Gaza.
Even like I get creeped out when I drive by
illegal settlements that are also heavily armed, and then whinge when they get crossed. I mean, I have this is one of my favorite analogies. I don't even know.
Yeah, go for it.
Is when people bang on about the rave, and I'm like, yeah, people were killed in that, I'm not like excited that they were killed, although a lot of them were killed also by the IDF. Of course, you could make the argument that the IDF wouldn't have had to kill them or wouldn't have killed them if Hamas hadn't have done what they did. You can go on forever. But I'm like, let's have a thought experiment. Let's say that some Indians decide that they want to have a rave on like close to the line of contact in Kashmir. And they happen to do that the same day that Pakistan executes a raid on some Indian military outposts. Would you have the same? Because it is analogous. Would you have the same kind
absolutely.
of like, oh, they should have been safe, and if they were just having fun and the music, and then oh my god, it's like, yeah, I'm not happy about it, but a personal responsibility. It's just like, I mean,
yeah, like I think there are
sorry, no, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you were saying. I think the partying near the Gaza border is insane. I get creeped out just sort of, anytime I walk past a prison here, and I know that it's a normal prison. But I would feel like you wouldn't have your birthday or a celebration right next to it. Yeah. But like again, that doesn't mean
not in prison. When I go over here, it's not in prison. Sorry.
Yeah. That doesn't mean like they deserve to die, but yeah, it was definitely a gross thing that they were doing. In addition to that, like people were caught in the crossfire. There were 5,000 people at that concert, and 200 or so, I think, ended up being killed. The thing that I always think is like you see all the twisted cars that are obviously from helicopter Hellfire missiles, not from Hamas's small arms fire. Lost my train.
No, sorry, it's my fault. But people. I mean, I think, and it's easy to see in others. I'm sure there's some issues that I'm just like a crazy bitch on. That I'm just like not seeing things. That's possible. But it's just like, hello, look what kind of weapons do you? But then people are idiots. I mean, sorry, a lot of them have been made to be idiots on this issue because a lot of people don't know much about it. But they think like Gaza is some sort of country, like just some sort of bad neighborhood or something, and they just got really rowdy and decided to go kill Jews one day. I mean, it's just like, it's like, do you realize that they don't have an airport, they don't have a navy, they don't have an army, they don't have the tanks, they don't have the missiles, they don't have the jets, they don't have the this, they don't have the that. Look at what they have. They have these, I don't know if they're also like the old Kalashnikov. I mean, they do manage to get stuff in there, and they also repurpose stuff. So they can, It's like their rockets, like the Hamas rockets. I'm like, okay, if one of their rockets directly hits you, you could perish. But come on, it's not like it's what's being dropped on them. And not that I'm glad that some random person gets hit, in Ashkelon or outside Tel Aviv by a rocket. But it's like, okay, it's kind of like anyway. So they have the rifles and maybe like some kind of makeshift hand grenades or something. They can't melt a fleet of cars or roast bodies beyond recognition.
Yeah. They kept saying Hamas has
questions. They're afraid to ask those questions, so it just spreads.
Yeah.
Oh, look what they did. And if you say, well, how? What do you say? You say they deserved it. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, it's
always a pivot.
Consequences here, but it's not. I mean, what's happening in Gaza in and of itself is bad enough. But there's other outside things. So it's like, I think we should be freaking careful about all this propaganda that people are parroting. I mean, idiocy is off the charts. It's just, and it'd be one thing, it's just funny, but people are dying,
Yeah, it's insane.
It's like, please, and if you don't know, that's why I like to channel Norman Finkelstein. He's like, just shut up. Just shut your mouth. You don't know what you're talking about. Please, for the love of God. Shut your mouth. What he called Marianne Williamson a bimbo?
He called who?
Marianne Williamson a bimbo. You know who Marianne Williamson is?
No.
So, oh my God. Well, she was running for president in the Democratic Party, even though they didn't know
yeah.
Biden. And her claim to fame, she had like she was like A Course in Miracles, or anyway, she was kind of like got big with the Oprah. She was like Oprah's like spiritual advisor, and she's on the left, kind of like out of that, kind of like a new left and whatnot. And she was trying to kind of both sides it, very much both siding it, and very much not wanting to really come across anything definitive against Israel and just saying some stupid shit. And she was on a podcast, and subsequently the same podcast had Norm Finkelstein on and showed him the clip and asked to respond to it. He's like, whatever. It's like, shh, on this issue, I'm sure you're a nice lady with the crystals and the I mean, I'm kind of ad-libbing here, but he's like, just shut up. Just shut your mouth. This is a serious issue. If you don't know what you're talking about, just shut up. Especially if you have a platform. And he's freaking right. He's just right.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I mean, it's like, shut up with your, there's just this. I mean, I don't have to tell you, if you've been in the thick of it in social media about just the shit that people will. You're like, what?
Yeah.
It's like, why don't you read what you just wrote to me and then think and then consider if you really want to keep it up there.
One of the things I was going to say about the concert was that there were 5,000 people at that concert, and so when you think if there was a couple of hundred casualties, then that's not when I've been at concerts of 5,000 people, you could imagine 1,000 people easily dying if people are firing.
There was the Astro World something. What was it? The Kylie Jenner's baby daddy. What's his name? Travis Scott or something. I don't know if you heard about that.
Oh yeah, with the stampede.
Yeah.
So when you look at it like that, that there were 5,000 people there, that sort of gives you a indication of the way people speak about it. They're like, they killed everybody at the music festival, and it's like, no, they didn't. People got caught in the crossfire. And the ironic thing is that every Zionist doesn't know the March of Return and Hamas's and all the other organizations.
God,
peaceful.
They may know that women don't have dicks, but they know dick about Palestine, Israel. Sorry.
They don't know about the March of Return, which was a peaceful, a series of peaceful protests that went for a few months, a couple years prior to now. And you can see in the Wikipedia page, there's a casualty list, and there's basically no casualties on the IDF side. And then 100 people killed, people wounded by bombs and stuff like that. But the crazy thing is there's 5,000 basically injuries from snipers, because the snipers would sit on the border and deliberately shoot the knees out of non-violent protesters with live ammunition.
Can I just pause you for a second? And if you said this, I apologize. For
no worries.
People who listen to this later, the March of Return, I don't know if it was 2018. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Anyway, what it was is is that people were going to decide to march the return. They were going to march to the border fence, and as a show to try to to see if they could cross it, or just to push Israel's hand. And what Israel did is just had snipers there and just shooting people. I mean, I don't know how many people they were trying to kill shots, but like you said, and they would shoot journalists, people in wheelchairs, anybody.
It says here 100.
You have these lovely settlers who are watching it like it's some sort of action movie, and nobody did. It didn't make any ripple, hardly at all. In the it was
183.
Whatever kind of weird abstraction we're using it. Okay, hold on. We have a Go ahead. I just wanted to add that there in case people didn't know.
No worries. It was 183 live ammunition fatalities and 6,000 live ammunition injuries. So that's as though they sat there and shot the knees out of every single person at the Nova Music Festival. Like, if you want to look at it like that, when they're talking about, like, you know, innocent people getting targeted, like, that's what they did. They deliberately tried to make cripples out of you know, people that they knew was going to, like, make their lives very difficult, because now you've got 6,000 people who need to be, like, cared for, as opposed to if they just, like, killed them.
Yeah. And also to add, this goes back to the common theme that this is, like, you know, if anybody isn't familiar or hasn't thought about Noam Chomsky, and I feel bad for the other guy, because it was two people wrote that book, Manufacturing Consent, and Chomsky was actually the second author. So sorry, I'll find out who that guy was. He should, you know, Noam doesn't need all the glory. But it's just a case study, especially when they talk about the sorting of worthy and unworthy victims, you know? And it's just like, I don't know, that's why it's hard, and because racism was being thrown around so much before this happened, that I was just like, you know, but it's just, it's so crazy, but I'm digressing a bit. Is that, and also people pretend, like, people coming from the UK or Germany or America, it's like, what do you think happens in combat? How many, and I was so pissed, and I knew that this 40 babies thing, I wasn't going to come out and say it was bullshit, because I thought, I'm like, this doesn't sound right to me. They're like this, and I'm just like, but then, I go, how many fucking babies has the US military killed? How many babies has the UK killed? How many babies has France killed? How many babies has Germany killed? How many babies has Japan killed? I mean, give me a freaking break. And not just in terms of armed combat, but with sanctions. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
Hypocrisy. And again, they'll turn it back on you. You just don't care about this. No, it's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, if you want to judge, let's judge. Let's use the same measure to judge.
Well,
and also keep in context the historical context, because this is not a fair fight here, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. Oh, the baby. Oh, the women. And again, you know, people be like, well, because even if you'll share the thing to try to be like, look, these rape allegations, especially the mass rape allegations, so far are just allegations. There's no corroborating evidence. The people who have been making them, a lot of them are highly, you know, unreliable figures. Israel won't let independent investigations in, and all this stuff. Of course, this is a perfect thing for them, because if you question, it's like, oh, wait, you're saying that you don't believe women, you don't care that they're raped. And what I'm saying is that what this is doing, and I don't know if they think that people don't have theory of mind, like we're all idiots, but it's like, we know that this is a pretext to get people not to care about what they're doing in Gaza. They deserve it. They're animals. They're whatever. So you can hear it. And so when you see something bad, like, well, but they, you know, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You can't live next to these people.
Yeah.
And it's also, it's a front to women who have actually, to any woman or girl who's been sexually violated, or child, can happen to boys and men as well. But of course, you know, I'm telling anybody listening to this that the numbers there. You throw this around like that, and it's like, and you know, and it's just so ridiculous. Like, well, can you say that nobody was raped? Like, you can't prove a freaking negative. All I'm saying is, I will say with 100% certainty that mass rape is not a Hamas strategy. Now, can I say that nobody that didn't happen that day? No. Also, when they broke through the gates and whatnot, other people got out. It wasn't just the more disciplined, trained Hamas and other, whatever you want to call them, brigades or whatever. Other people got out. So, you know, unfortunately, it would be more surprising if there was no sexual violence that day. But then again, nobody wants to talk about the sexual violence coming from Israel. Also, and within Israel, but also towards Palestinian women. And people will say, like, I'm making this up. I'm like, let me get this straight. So you have a population that nobody really in the world with any power cares about, that has no civil liberties, no political liberties, and
no food.
and you're going to tell me that the guys don't mess around with the women? You're going to tell me they don't use that to blackmail? I mean, like, seriously, just seriously. Oh, you're a Jew hater, whatever. You know, I mean.
I mean, like the other thing,
Crazy.
in regards to what you're saying
Oh, look,
with,
Bitter Pill is on it. Bitter Pill is on it. So hold on just a second. Bitter
Sure.
Pill. So 2018, 2019. That must have been when the March of Return was happening.
Yeah.
And also
Yeah.
Edward Herman. He was the main author on the Manufacturing of Consent, a book everybody should read. It needs to be updated because like 25% of the book could be on. I think we lost FMG. He'll be back up. I'll just talk to everybody here. Or Artless, do you want to come up a bit while he's oh no, Rebel's coming back. Okay, I'm gonna hold on. Okay, hi Rebel.
Hey, sorry, I just was trying to look at the comments.
He was like, I'm out of here now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was trying to read the comments.
No, it's hard. No, I totally. I think most people will have some grace with us.
Yeah.
So, although people are like, oh, your volume. I'm like, look, I'm with my 10-year-old computer with the built-in kit, so I try to do what I can. Anyway. So with everyone should read The Manufacturing of Consent, at least like the first and the last chapter, when you talk about the sorting of worthy and unworthy victims. And of course, they were talking about this, I think it was like in the late 80s, they wrote this book before social media. And in response to anybody, basically a Cold War framework that anybody about who you're allowed to have any empathy for, and who the media is going to censor. And we see this now. That any Jewish student that gets their feelings hurt is on, on the cable news, but the other stuff is just like, you're like, okay. But I think if that somebody's gonna, I'm sure that other books have been written, but if someone wanted to update that for our current situation, I think about 25% of it could be on gender ideology, and that 75% would just be Israel Palestine. I think would just be all of it, but of course not just the news media. Also now the NGOs and the universities and all this stuff. So they have this propaganda model. I think they illustrate like 5 mechanisms or 6, the way that the consent is manufactured. Anyway, but thank you very much, Bitter Pill. Edward Herman. He doesn't get enough credit. He was the main author on that piece. Thank you very much. And then what else do we have from Bitter Pill? Only one baby even died on October 7th. Yeah. I don't know. A baby, I think that...
I heard it was 2. It
was 2, yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong. And again, we only can go by...
But that might be wrong. I might be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, we only know what we read because we're not on the ground. But I think Haaretz, again, kind of like... They steadily kind of like been altering the numbers. And the last thing that I saw, I think it might have been... Was it 10 kids or was it 6 or 8 kids? But kids could be from 0 to, I'm assuming 17. But yeah, 1 or 2 babies. So we'll say, but anyway, yes. But this idea, the evidence doesn't back up the actual evidence that people have been able to piece together to try to figure out what actually happened that day. And, it's impossible to know everything. And then even if we had a quote unquote complete factual record, people are going to have different interpretations. So, but in some of the really crazy shit, you could be like, please. And I would also say that it's just kind of that, it's quite clear that they had, and Scott Ritter wrote a piece about October 7th, calling it the most successful military raid of like the last 50 or 60 years. And he got things from a military strategic perspective.
I've been listening to him.
Just kind of like, leave the emotions aside, leave the politics aside. Let's just look at what happened, which is a good text. I'll put in the links below at some point. But so it's quite clear. It's quite clear what their objectives were, and it's like they wanted to take as many hostages as possible. So killing everyone. I'm sure, like people who were armed. Yeah, I'm sure they would. And I have no doubt that. Maybe with some of the high value targets they got, kidnapping some of the military people, that they probably did not leave people behind who could call and let people know what was going on. I mean, I have no problem thinking that did they kill people that they didn't need to kill? I guess would be yes. But in that situation, again, it's like, this is how you could say that about any military operation that goes on. Not saying that there isn't a spectrum of savagery and barbarity, of course.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, on that, one of the things that I thought was interesting was, so Hamas, like, don't target civilians officially. And I think that's, you have to give that the same amount of respect that we say for, say, like, the Australian or the US military don't target. Like, it's that, it has at least that level of credibility. Like, the fact, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say the fact that they're saying that is significant, that we don't target civilians. And in particular, the reason they don't target civilians
anymore. Let's be honest. We have to
anymore.
Be honest about that.
Yeah,
and I would just say
is because of the mass shooting. There was a mass shooting in a church that an Israeli terrorist carried out, and it was sort of in the wake of that Hamas was like, okay, well, we can either start going like church for church, or we can like say some things are off the table, and we won't target civilians. So
no, but can I just interject for just a second? Or do you want to finish your thought first? What I want to say is that, again, this is and not that just because I live somewhere means I'm an expert, but I did live in Gaza for 2 years, 2002, 2004, during the second Intifada. And this is when the suicide bombing things were going on. And my understanding was, and this, even Hamas itself. So of course you have the Democratic Party members, and then you have like the actual Democratic Party, and then you have various wings, and administrative, political, defense, let's just say.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a decision that there was two things that I understood was that any resistance movement really can't hit hard targets, military targets, because they're not allowed to have the equipment that would allow them to do that. So either you just say, well, what can we do? We don't want to deal with soft targets, which just means non-military targets. But when they decide to go, whenever the decision was made to start the suicide bombings, my understanding was what they thought was that if people over there have the fear that we have over here, they thought that it would really make a difference. That it would push people over there to be like, look, we have to come to some sort of a resolution. That did not happen. And as I understand it now, and again, I'm not saying you should believe anything anybody said. Obviously, they also have their, their political comments and their, whatever. But that now, that seemed to have the suicide bombing thing has stopped. And if that was how much that was because of the Iron Wall and all this stuff, so it was hard to do, or because they realized that it wasn't having the effect that they were hoping for. And yeah, is that a terrorist strategy? Yeah, it is. But again, if we use the same measure, if you use any so-called civilized country, their military and state use terrorist tactics as well. So
yeah, it's like when they say shock and awe. When they say shock and awe, it's like, what do you mean by shock? You mean terror?
Yeah.
We're going to terrify the fuck out of these people.
Anytime you go into war, you've gone into terrorism. I mean, hello. And you can try, some countries and some military, and even within different countries, there's differences between the different, I don't know what the word is, battalions, whatever. Obviously, do some take a lot more care to reduce quote unquote collateral damage more than others? Absolutely. Does Israel care about collateral damage? No. Their goal seems to be to take out as many people as possible. That's another story. But and again, also with the rockets, when they want to fire rockets, again, I'm quite sure that if I'm very confident in this statement. If Hamas had the equipment that Israel does, they also, I think they would be very careful to focus on quote unquote hard targets. But Israel also uses human shields. If you look where they have a lot of their hard targets, it's not safely away from quote unquote civilian populations, and part of what the security apparatus around Gaza, it's dotted with these illegal, highly armed, highly zealot settlements or kibbutzes, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, the kibbutzes, yeah.
These aren't just, woo, I'm on the kibbutz, I'm just, making my, it's like, okay, yeah, there is that, but they're armed. They're there. The settlements aren't there. They're there for a security reason. They are also human shields. And then they can be like, look, they fired rockets at this family. It's like, well, okay, but let's take out
the building is fortified.
Yeah.
Like the buildings are sort of,
they're
intended to play a military purpose.
They're part of the occupation apparatus. I mean, they just are. And
yeah.
And people know, there's people who can speak way more on the particulars of that than I can. But so this is also the thing, so either if you're going to do armed resistance and you're a group like Hamas, and then they're not the only group that's had to make these decisions. If you're going to fight back, you can't, if you're like, okay, well, we can't take the risk of killing any civilians, then you can't fight back armed. They just, how would they do it? Are they going to these makeshift rockets? Are they going to have some sort of guidance mechanism? And also part of it is they know that most of them are supposed to be shot down. They want the Israel and vicariously then the U.S. to waste money because every little rocket that gets shot down is shot down by something that costs what? I don't know, $1 million,
tens of thousands or whatever. Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah. I think
so it's just I just wanted to add wanted to add that in there that and there's a couple of books that have been on Hamas written by people who went there, actually interviewed and hung out with people in and around that organization that are quite enlightening, and also we'll put that in the link at some other point if people want to check that out. But so we came to an end. Should we take do you want to take a 5-minute pause, or should we just keep on going?
I'm good. If you want to take a pause, we can.
I got my huge cup of coffee and my
cool. No, I'm set. I just wanted to say in regards to the non-violent thing, or not the non-violent, the not terrorist thing. I think that they have kind of gone away from this strategy of targeting civilians. And that was the reason. I read this in one of their documents. They were like, the reason we don't do this anymore is because of the, whether that's true or not, that's what they tell people as to why.
Well, and I'm sure there was a variety of reasons. I mean, people tend to forget that they are actually human. And most of them probably, and then again, in any military organization, I'm sorry, but you're going to want to have some sociopaths. I mean, there's some professions, there's some work that requires that amount of, detachment or,
So in terms of what happened on October 7th, I think one of the things that's important to know is that they never expected they expected 90% of their people to be killed the second they went over the wall. So there was a problem in that respect, in that I think they were expecting to come back with maybe 5 or 10 hostages total, which would have been great for them because they were trying to replicate a situation that had happened, some years earlier, I think a decade or so, sorry?
Was it in Lebanon or was it with Hamas?
I think it was Hamas. They had managed to kidnap a soldier and traded him for 1,000 Palestinians. So I don't think they thought they were originally going to get many hostages at all. And so I think a lot of what happened once they got over there and they found they pushed through the Israelis really easily was made up on the spot by people who weren't really prepared for that eventuality. And when people say, what would you have had Israel do? This is my honest response to that, is that I would have said, if I was Israel, what was it, a couple days after Hamas was like, if you don't come into Gaza, we'll give you all the hostages back. I would have been like, fine, but we have this footage, and this guy has fucked with a body. This guy has done this. This guy has done that. We want these people in addition to the hostages, and then you're fine. And I think Hamas would have gladly done that. In terms of, yeah, I think they would have. It would have
I don't
been.
think
It
so,
would.
but yeah.
You don't think so?
Okay,
Well,
so-
then,
but
yeah,
finish,
okay,
finish.
that's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but finish.
Yeah, okay, no, that's wrong. I don't think Hamas would have gladly done that. I think Hamas would have been would have hated doing that. But I think given the if you had presented that offer to them, instead of going in militarily, because once Israel goes in militarily, now every day that goes by, Israel looks worse because the dead bodies are piling up and they don't have the hostages. Whereas if Israel had waited and said, and came back with a counter offer like that and said, we want all our hostages back and we want the people who like committed these atrocities against Israelis, then Hamas is fucked, because the international community is looking at them like, yeah, what the fuck? You're not going to hand over these guys that did this horrific stuff. Like, Israel isn't even bombing you guys. Like, what the hell is going on? And that would have screwed Hamas.
Yeah.
But to do that, you had to have not been like a maniacal, genocidal person looking for any excuse to kill the Palestinians in the first place, and actually have a think about what it is that
you're doing.
The situation that you're in and how to like realistically respond to that. And that was basically
and again,
my point.
I have no special access to Hamas command. I do still have contacts from my time in Gaza, although quite a few of them have perished over the last 7 months. But to me, I think, and this is, of course, it's almost like the first couple of things that you read about something, you hear about something, right when it happens, if it clicks with you, it just kind of stays in your head. You're just like, okay, yeah. But with Scott Ritter's analysis, and I don't know, he's coming from a military geopolitical point of view, is that nobody was caring about, even people who cared about Palestine had kind of forgotten about it. Yeah, the March of Return happened, nothing happened. You have the Abraham Accords with Kushner, and I don't know what they're doing. You had Saudi Arabia and Israel being this close to kind of normalizing relations. And so I thought, I kind of see it as, if I try to put myself in that one of those head guys' minds, it's like, look, it's either we do this or we just have to just let go of the idea that this is ever going to get any better. We should just like wrap up and whatever. So I can't remember the guy's name, but Sinwar, he's the guy. Yeah, there was one of the head guys in Hamas who was in an Israeli prison, I think, for maybe 15 years or something. And we forget, nobody knows Israel and the IDF better than Hamas does, and better than the so they probably now, did they know that they would go so whole hog? I mean, who knows? But it's clear that they were prepared for the long haul. So that when whoever was in Gaza went underground. I mean, Hamas and the towns went underground, and the guys who managed to get back also did. And so the tunnels and all that. So it's like they must have had plenty of food and water, and who knows what's going on there, to have an idea to hunker down. And the fact that they're still there, they're not like starving to death, or maybe some have. I mean, I don't know. They're still able to do something. And it's hard to know. I mean, I think it might be impossible to close down like every single tunnel between.
I would assume some of them go into Egypt and maybe into Lebanon as well. Yeah.
So anyway, so I think that there was like either this is like the last. This is we just got to do something big, and roll the dice and hope it goes our way, or hope that something that at least it changes the narrative. It certainly changed the narrative. Who was talking about Israel Palestine? Who knew much all this? The hood, opening up the hood on Zionism has never been so opened. All this stuff, and even though if you take out the atrocious death toll, if you put that to the side, and what Scott Ritter says is that Hamas is winning. They're winning this war. Now it's coming at an extreme cost in Palestinian blood. Yeah, but strategically, militarily, they're winning this war, or whatever you want to call it. And so all Israel can do is get more erratic, more deranged. Kill more and more kids and women and elderly and affirm and say, oh, the Hamas was whatever it was, or well dressed in. Who knows what they're going on with now? And so I think that it changed the thing. You have pressure about this has to, this is it's on the whatever you want to call it, on the national stage again, or it's an issue again.
It's an election. It's got people not voting for Biden. That is crazy.
You have people who are proudly wearing the Khalifa, not just around. I should pull mine out, although I got kids as well, but I have a whole bunch somewhere in the attic, I think. That not just as a scarf, but wrapping up their head, what the Hamas people do. It's this is what this, and I think the idea that that a lot of people obviously can't sign off on everything that Hamas does, and maybe it's hard for them to relate because they're a fundamentalist Islamic thing, and they think they don't think women can, they don't believe in magic prefixes, and their religious belief, they think homosexuality is a sin, all that stuff. I don't dispute that, but this whole idea that you can just say terrorist and people's mind just goes blank, for more and more people, that's not working, and. And even to this day, even though all the stuff that I know about the situation, I still get a pit in my stomach if I'm going to tweet something with Hamas guy on it. Because I'm am I really going to go? And I'm you gotta disempower these control mechanisms that they have. And it's it's the same thing. It's if I say something and it's you're an anti-Semite or you're whatever, and you're just okay, well, you just, and I feel well, actually, a couple of rabbis told me that nothing's more anti-Semitic than Zionism. So, factoid for you.
The similarity there between trends.
Even though I know it's bullshit, even though I know how weaponized that term has become since 9/11. That anybody we don't like is a terrorist, anybody we do like is a freedom fighter or an ally or a lover, who knows what. But still, I'm because people can't. It's they can't imagine either it's all or nothing, in for a penny, in for a pound. And I'm not. But so there's still, even with somebody who knows the bullshit, it's still hard to. Then I feel kind of badass. I'm coke, baby. I'm convinced that Hamas is going to be the new Che Guevara t-shirt.
Yeah. I've seen that. I think that's pretty likely. There's so much to unpack.
I'm telling you, that alone freaks out the whole Zionist thing. That alone. So people want to maybe the students. I'm the students. Are they liberal? Are they grievance politics? A lot of them are fine, but this freaks out. This is why these people are mobilizing and going after these quote unquote these elite institutions. Because they can't have these people who are typically propped up to be the best and the brightest and elites going off with their their Khalifa and from the river to the sea and Zionism is racism and all this stuff
Yeah. And that's one of the things too, is that when people will make fun.
All of this is precipitated from October 7th. And I totally agree with you that if anybody in Israel had any kind of sense or could imagine thinking about their opposition as intelligent and as or just any kind of theory of mind about any other group, this is the thing. And so I kind of agree with it. And so it gets to the point that if you're going to push this, and it's not like they know that Israel isn't doesn't care at all about Palestinians. It's not like they don't know that Israel's really concerned about population numbers. I mean, killing those kids and moms is not an accident.
Yeah.
And they can't say it. Now they're kind of saying it, but it's if you want to depopulate, if you're really concerned about demographics, who are you going to kill?
Yeah. Yeah, like the IDF T-shirt with the pregnant woman on it, and it's got like 1 hit, 2 kills written underneath.
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of things. You have rabbis who are saying that it's a baby today, but it's a terrorist tomorrow, so we should kill them. And they're not. That's not a baby. It's like a future,
terrorist or whatever.
Bomb, or Palestinians don't carry babies. They carry bombs. I saw
right.
That.
Yeah.
From an IDF chick.
Sorry.
From an IDF spokesperson lady.
Right. Yeah.
Lovely lady. Total perf.
I was thinking we should probably maybe like introduce the bit of my collection of well, 2 things, because we were talking about Kelly J. Keane and then her descent into Zionism. And the video she made and put everyone on this blacklist, but she ended up deleting that.
Hold on just a second, Rebel. I want to do that, but just to clarify for those, I'm sure most people watching just know who Kelly J. Keane is, and she's one of the faces that inspired this graphic by one of our compatriots made, Zionist Terf. So anyway, so basically, so Terf, trans exclusionary radical feminists. So it's thing that basically people are fighting, women are we were talking about that a bit, and that just for people who are popping in right now, it turns out that a lot of Terfs are hardcore Zionists. It seems maybe they don't say that, they don't think of that themselves in that way, but the way they talk and the way they perceive anything Palestinian seems quite Zio-Terf, or what we call perf. So a perf is a Palestinian excluding radical femalist, if you're not a feminist, or a Palestinian excluding radical feminist. So it works both ways.
Yeah.
Femalist, feminist, fuckwad, fascist. Well, we want, well, I guess you want the fascist too. I don't know. But anyway, so F works quite a bit. But anyway, please continue. We're going to segue into Rebel's experience online exchanges with Kelly J. Keane, aka Posey Parker.
Yeah, so I saw the video where she put everyone on a blacklist, and it was interesting because that was around the time she had interviewed Stella O'Malley, and I felt like she'd gone kind of soft on Stella and thought that this is my opinion, that she could have really done a lot more damage to GenSpect and Stella's and like that organization, which I think deserves to be damaged. And she didn't. She went relatively easy, and that was like related to gender studies to like, this issue. And but on this thing that wasn't related to the gender issue, she was creating this blacklist of people, and like she did her little sign off that she normally does where she's like, we've all got to stick together, except this time it was like, we've got to stick together, but you've got to know some people are evil and you've got to not work with those people. And if you do that, then we'll win. And it's like, what? This seems like a very different to the thing I signed up for. So I started, and she said at one point, I had a few little back and forths with her on Twitter. She lost and left every single like interaction. And at some point she said, I would have said the same thing about, October 7th or whatever, if it had happened to Palestinian women. And so I just started, I noticed she would express sympathy if she could deflect blame to Hamas. So if you show her a bunch of like dead babies, she'll be like, oh yeah, that's so sad. Hamas made us do that, boo-hoo. So you have to find examples of the IDF like specifically attacking people. And there are examples of this. Like there's one that I thought was particularly pertinent, which is a 7-year-old girl getting pulled out of her house by like 3 male Israeli soldiers. And I thought that was, particularly pertinent because the whole GC community had lost their minds when, I think it was in England, a cop got offended that are we still doing it?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, a cop got offended that someone she was trying to arrest said, "You look like my lesbian nana," and the woman who said it had like some kind of intellectual disability, so kind of didn't.
I remember that. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and every GC was saying like, "Oh, this is the worst human rights abuse like I've ever seen." Blah 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, well, what about this 7-year-old Palestinian like girl getting pulled out of her house? Like, looks like she's being kidnapped and thrown into the back of a military vehicle. So I'd find these types of videos and I would send them to Kelly J, basically being like, "What about this one? What about this one? What about this one?"
Yeah.
And there was never any kind of like all you'd have to do is one time say, "Oh yes, that's bad," to maintain even the illusion that you still like consider Palestinians human. But I don't know what the issue is, but I'm now like, when she's asking for money, it's like, get funded by the IDF. Why am I paying? Why am I paying you when you could easily they would love to have you on board.
APAC?
Yeah.
That's American.
Yeah.
They probably, I'm sure they have a similar version in who knows.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah. So so that happened. So simultaneously to that, I also started a so that hashtag was called #Who Rules Over Let Women Speak. And the idea is like, who rules over let women speak is like, it'd be like a group of men who can do this and not have Kelly J call them out was sort of the thing. So yeah, there was that one. And then the other hashtag I've got is just Israel's dead name is Palestine.
Yeah, hold on, I just want to say that this is just because another theme that in the former Terf circles Terf not perf. There we go. Sex not gender and Terf not perf. Is that when you're trying to actually have a good faith argument, like Rebel would be, and trying to be like, look at this information, and all you're doing is just sharing information, and what you get is stuff like, instead of being called, you're just a transphobe, or you're just a hater, or you're just a weirdo. Why do you care about people's genitals? So how quickly a TERF or a perf will out TRA a TRA. I mean, it's like the exact same moves. And it's so funny because most of us who've been dealing with both sides of this know that all the kind of like memes and private jokes about TRAs, literally all you have to do is take out one term and put in another, and it works. It's just like, so she's not going to deal with anything that you showed. She's just going to dismiss you as some very weird anti-Semitic man. All right. I think that's
and she knows that I made that video that's like getting her people out of their defamation cases, or like helping so like none of that like previous kind of like working together and like making material contributions to her campaign like mattered at all.
Well, what's that expression, no good deed goes unpunished, or something?
Yeah.
You should retract it. Be like, maybe I pieced it together. I mean, maybe that wasn't how. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no. Because I really supported her, and I actually do agree with, like, for instance, a lot of her criticisms of Women's Place UK. I think a lot of times,
for sure.
And that's what's so difficult, it's just that she went off the rails.
It's so difficult because it's how you, okay, let's go through this and then we'll talk about how the kind of cognitive distance, or how it's difficult for us to reconcile a group of people who we were so simpatico with, or proud of, or revered in a certain area, totally become just repulsive And you're kind of like, what? I mean, anyway, so here's another one. Claire's outrageous thoughts. Claire's a perf. And she wrote, this was yesterday, I think. Note, there's a young girl. Okay, so somebody, again, one of our, I can't remember who, someone was trying, they were talking their bullshit, you know, it's like all fake, you know, and it's all, you know, fake news, all this, all the, you know, they don't believe that there's any kind of genocide or any kind of anything going on much in Gaza. Or they'll defend it, rationalize it, etc. So someone had posted something, a picture or a video, and Claire outrageous thoughts, and Claire, who's very concerned about safeguarding, we'll just let that be, you know, women and children's safeguarding. She's very big on that. Responds. She looks at this with these kids being note. Here's a young girl carrying a fake dead baby too, grooming that girl to bear children destined to become martyrs. Human shields for Hamas. That was yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean. And so then, of course, and thank God to Mama Terf, because, you know, she's hip on the AI. I've been trying to figure out AI, and oh my God. But she made up
me too.
She made up this lovely thing. And so I wrote, so I'm like, I'll perf anybody. Any Terf who goes perf, you'll be perfed online. I don't care. Come for me. Come for me.
I love it. I love finding perfs, and I love finding like Palestinian activists who are really transy, and I love trying to show either side, because they're both they are both exactly very, very similar. They're two forms of colonization that are like justified in a very similar way. So one of the things, one of the examples is like, you get accused of being anti-Semitic if you're opposed to Israel, which is very similar to the way that you're assumed to be like homophobic if you're opposed to gender ideology, when in fact gender ideology is the homophobic idea. Despite the fact that the like the majority of the population supports gender, so therefore the majority of gay people support gender, but like the minority of them oppose it like quite staunchly and for good reason. And I think it kind of works a similar way with Judaism, where like Zionism might be potential, I don't know the stats on it, but more popular, but there's still a core of other Jewish people who like see it as, no, you're like building this thing to exploit my community.
Almost like leave us out of it. You know, it's like Israel's Israelis, not every Jewish person. But I think also it's really difficult, and we all can understand this, to speak up even if it's your own community, because, you know, the self-hating Jew and all this stuff. I mean, they've really, you know, I mean, Norm Finkelstein's another thing. He should be running a university, and he got totally taken out because he called Alan Dershowitz out on his bullshit. And the people who are exploiting the Holocaust for profit or exploiting it for a variety of reasons. And he, you know, whoop. So there's a price to pay. Even, you know, there's things you can say within your, like, that you can say within your quote unquote community or whatever, it's fine. But there's certain things that if you do, you just know, like, oh Jesus, I just don't even want to go there, because it's just too, the shit that will rain down on you is. So it's
interesting. I was interested in discussing this with you, because I wanted to say, like, you know, one of the things that drew my attention to Let Women Speak was the promise of like a truly single issue like campaign. And there's this document or a couple of speeches by this socialist called Peter Cameo, and one of them is called Cameo, Camejo. And he's got two speeches from the 69 and 70 called How to Make a Revolution in the United States and Liberalism, Ultra-Leftism, or Mass Action. And I just copied this section out because it's one that I like think is relevant. So it just says, people don't suddenly understand everything at once. Think about your own political development. There's always one issue or another, depending on the objective conditions, which tends to wake a person up. As we've said over and over again, at the present stage, the most effective weapon to stop the ruling class from moving to the right is to get the masses of people in motion. And the most effective way to do this at this stage is mass peaceful legal demonstrations. Now, if we want to build a movement against the Vietnam War, it cannot, by definition, be multi-issue. That's like saying we want a single issue movement that's multi-issue. The multi-issue anti-war movement is the trick, which is the key to how liberals and the ultra-leftists can get together organizationally, politically, socially, etc., get married and live happily ever after. The trick is to make the issues non-issues, make them so nebulous that they have nothing to do with concrete realities. Yeah, sort of goes off onto a slightly different thing. But yeah, that thing of like, a lot of radical or leftists get this feeling that when a movement starts taking on multiple issues, it's getting more developed and the people in it are now smarter. As opposed to like you're alienating an extra group of people every time you add like another issue to be like a requirement to participate in this thing. So it's an interesting kind of like position that we find ourselves in, because it's like, I think I want both issues to succeed. I want the Palestinian cause to succeed, and I want women's rights to succeed. And I don't necessarily think that like those two things have to become each other.
No.
But I do think that it's good that politically switched on people are in either kind of camp, like trying to make sure that either the transness doesn't take over Palestine or the Zionism doesn't take over women's rights.
I think there's very well. I mean,
sorry, go ahead. Or just that, and that those issues are actually single issue rather than like becoming de facto like Zionist like things or trans things.
Yeah, and I mean, coming from the West, yeah. But I was just going to say that I don't think there's much danger of Palestine going trans, going to LGBT.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, just in terms.
Not to say, and I want to say, and I want to clarify this as well, just because since I have the opportunity to. Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that it's easy to be LGBT in Palestine or the broader Middle East. However, I just want to throw out the fact that when I was there, one of the things I did probably like, maybe twice a week is I would go to one of the salon there to have, because there wasn't a lot to do on the weekends, and it's not like I could go and hang out on the beach in my swimsuit. I mean, I probably could, but it would have gotten a lot of attention, and I was a teacher there, so I had to, keep an eye on my reputation, which is fine. Anyway, so I spent a lot of time. So a lot of us, there's 4 or 5 of us who were single women teachers at the American National School there back in 2002, 2004. And I think it was Rosie's Salon. It might have been Rosie's. It was run by Rosie and Mohammed. Mohammed was a Palestinian, and Rosie was actually a British woman, and they married, and they'd been, anyway. So they have a salon, and I would go there, and so one day a week I'd have like my hair done, and just to have it done, honestly, cut but just like blown out, or the treatment or whatever it is. And then the day like your manicure, pedicure, and maybe then another day like a full body massage. I mean, because it was cheap by our standards, but it was something to do, and it was cool to hang out, And my point is that usually these would be very sex segregated spaces. So for example, even though Muhammad, who's the co-owner, you'd walk in and there'd be like a little desk area, and sometimes he would be there, they'd be there together, but you never saw him in this quote unquote salon area. Yeah, it was just females. However, 2 of my favorite people who worked there were 2 of the gayest men I've ever seen in my life. So gay. I mean, like, I don't know, that guy from like Queer Eye for this, like the Queer Eye gay. I mean, gay.
Right. Yeah. And this no gaydar necessary to detect this gayness.
And it was like, and it was one of those things like everyone had to have known they were gay, and I'm assuming they knew, but it was never, it was kind of like this don't ask, don't tell thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's fantastic. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that is like, you know, and so they also, another thing is that they were around with the ladies. I mean, not in the bathroom or the sauna, but you know, like they would, they would do the hair, and they weren't doing the massages or anything, but they were hairstylists basically. They were the top hairstylists there.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, you know, and I just, and I don't know, you know, it could have gotten more difficult later on because I was there between 2002 and 2004. But yeah, if someone got found out or there was like a, you know, bring shame on all that type of stuff, I'm not saying that it's easy at all to be outly, like, you know, out of the closet, so to speak. But these two men were fantastic and super gay. Everything about them screamed, "I am a gay man." And I would see them walking around the street, you know. I mean, they weren't like going like, you know, maybe they were trying to tone it down. I don't know. But I was just like, I mean, please.
Yeah, well, that's kind of interesting because they bring that up. Like, the Zionists will bring that up and sort of make fun of people for being like, well, you're queers for Palestine, etc., which I always try to compare to like gays and lesbians support the miners, because that was essentially the same situation of like them finding a community that was so homophobic they wouldn't even talk to them, but still supporting them on the basis that like their success would reflect positively on, you know, that helping out a fellow person in the working class is going to benefit everybody in the working class, I guess. And the other thing on that is that what I think they're inadvertently saying is, so in the beginning, when the GC movement was a lot of conservatives, you would get a lot of talk from like various people going like, oh, the lefties are all insane and they won't let people talk. And they believe in this kind of guilt by association, so you can't go on even like a media thing without being tarnished with whatever that person did. And so
it's like, yeah, well, no one else will let them speak, so what's the point?
And so that sort of started off, and then and so a lot of the lecturing that would happen from someone like Kelly J would be towards left-wing women, saying, don't be so like purist and sectarian, and come together in a broad alliance with conservative women who maybe don't agree with you on abortion or these other issues, so that we can make a change. And it's like, okay, so you only want that, like, but they only say that type of thing of like, oh, you have to put our differences aside, when it's the left putting their differences aside. So they would never say
what happened with fuck your feelings. I mean, Shapiro, I mean, these people are just like, there's a couple of them, the guys on the right who were very critical of gender ideology. There's a handful of them that are saying, like, you know, even though I don't agree with anything that's going on in these college campuses, this anti-Semitic, this hate speech stuff is bullshit. So you have a few.
Yeah.
You have a few, but all in all, it's like,
they signed on to it.
Every single thing they said about, you know, the pronouns on campus, they're doing the same thing when it comes to people opposing, or the quote unquote, I'll just say pro-Palestinian or opposed to genocide people. They call them pro-Hamas, you know, whatever.
Yeah, banning BDS.
Same thing. It's like they want the safe spaces, and it's like, oh, I'm a Jewish student, and I have to go by, and they have this sign that says from the river to the sea. I'm like, you know, like,
absolutely.
If you were actually being like literally harassed, okay, and like objectively from the outside looking in, people are like, okay, this is crossing a line. Totally not okay with that. That's fine.
Yeah.
The idea that if you see a Palestinian flag that you have to go and, like, you know, break down and, you know, go on some sort of I don't know, rest cure is just I think that's a you problem.
And similarly, I heard some Zionists be like, "Oh, you don't understand. We Jews, like, when one Jew gets attacked, we all feel attacked." And it's like, okay, but that sounds super similar to the trans people being like, because a trans woman in Brazil got murdered in the sex industry,
Yeah,
like
I'm
that's
under
part
attack.
of the global trans genocide that we all feel, and yeah, are
And
victims
also,
of.
it's just bullshit. I mean, and even if they did feel that way, it's an irrational thought to have.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just like, okay, so you've bought into this thing, so it's just that Jewish people are all around the world. So you have Jewish people in Iran and Jewish people in Ethiopia and Jewish people in all over Europe and the United States and all this stuff. They're all the same. Culturally, ethnically, language, the history of being Jewish in whatever particular area it is. It's absurd. It's a total abstraction, a chaotic thing, which is fine. We all have them. But yeah, and it's like, so, and it's also like, well, look, if you want to, so then it's like, if you're going to do that, you can't just cherry pick the good. Yeah. So if you want to lump yourself in with that, then you also have to take the critique about what those people are doing in your name. Saying they're doing it for you. We're killing these people for you. It's like, okay. Well, some of them probably say it that way. So it's just like, and even so, it's like, it's this idea that, which here's another irony for you, Rebel.
Yeah. Sorry, just a sec. I'm just going to grab something.
Yeah, and I just also want to let you know that I have your Twitter on screen, but it's not. I can't get it to Zoom, but we have it.
Oh, cool.
Anyway, I'll just say for the audience there, can you get that? I'll share it later. There's this great 10-minute talk from Wendy Brown, Professor Wendy Brown, who is married to Judith Butler, they them now. And she gave this. It was a teach-in, I think, on UC Berkeley. I think she was in UC Berkeley then. I think now she's at Princeton. I don't know. Side note, about the difference between political speech and regular speech. Yeah, and she gave this whole thing about how what turned out to be a left thing about not wanting wanting to being cognizant about discrimination, and about how when you have more minorities coming onto campus, about this type of thing has been has been like turned around, has been inverted. And she made it. She goes and she has this one thing. It's like, look, political speech isn't where you go to be affirmed and have your feelings taken into consideration. There's a time, there's a place for that. Your friends, your family, whatever. But it's just like, do you think that that when the civil rights movement was going on, that people that made white all the white people comfortable, or also all the black people comfortable? You think they were happy about that? You think when Occupy Wall Street was really going off, that the bankers were happy about that?
Yeah.
It's public speech. I mean, there would be no reason to. And so she has this great thing. It's like, this is not about teddy bears and feelings and affirmation. We have to be able to defend it, and we have to be able to withstand it. But this is before the whole gender stuff took off. But it's just so ironic that this is Professor Wendy Brown, who's the long-term. I think they've been together for a long time. They have a son. I think she has a son.
Right.
That one of the she is on it. She is fantastic, except for, of course, I can imagine she has a blind spot for her wife. Fair enough. But I'll share it with you because it's about 8 minutes and it's powerful, and it's just like,
sure.
It's like, this is very problematic. Fascism can also become, totalitarianism can come draped in a variety of things, and this feelings thing.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that so just with the single issue thing, they're betraying themselves, I think, because what they're saying on the one hand is like the Zionist GCs, they're saying a political alliance with people you disagree with is really powerful when it's you being silent and getting subsumed by my worldview, but not the other way around. And so it's like, well, yeah, if I'm an idiot for making an alliance with, or yeah, being in solidarity or whatever with Palestine, then surely we're also idiots for, you know, the disagreements around abortion, because that's way more like relevant. So if we can't, yeah, put those things aside, then yeah, surely I'm an idiot as well for teaming up with conservative anti-abortionists. But then they go like, no, 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 because I'm on that side. It's very similar. Like another analogy that I made recently was like, because you know, people like, oh, anyone who flies the Hamas flag should be killed because that's a flag that promotes you know, death or whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, should we apply the same rule to the Confederate flag? Should we just kill anyone who was flying that? Because clearly they're celebrating the, like, you know, enslavement and rape of other people. So yeah, but
no, the hypocrisy is just like, you know. But I agree with you. Just before we go on and looking at some of the funny quotes and see if Artless or anybody else wants to join us to dunk on the perf quotes or perf tweets, perf takes.
Yeah.
Is that, yeah, this one issue thing, and I think it's really something to grapple with. I use this all the time, or when I'm dealing with a super intersectionalist type thinker, or well, thinker. We'll be gracious, thinker. Sorry. And I'm like, hey, you know, the more mixer, the weaker the drink, you know, and the more you try to put in there, it's just kind of like this. It's almost you know, kind of a Hegelian dialectic move. Like the more you try to include, the more you end up excluding. You know, it's like the more superficial, the more kind of generalist type of thing. And if you just want to, like, you know, have a nice social thing, that's one thing. But if you actually want to get things done, especially politically or like policy wise or consciousness or whatever, then you gotta you gotta be strategic and also use it as an opportunity that, like, if, let's say I'm a huge communist. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I don't know what term it is because the terms are all in the interregnum phase right now about what they actually mean. But let's say, okay, I care about this. I'm not going to have my general politics face forward, like trying to school or postulate people all the time. But you show people about what you do and how you interact with them. You know, and you would hope that when the shoe's on the other foot, that maybe you need a bit more support, or it's just an issue that they also can, if not totally be on board, not be against, that they would do the same thing for you. Now, not everybody will. That's fine. But it's like, you know, you have I don't know how it is in Australia, but some of these quote unquote like socialist groups or Marxist groups, like I can't remember, it was like the Marxist Party of there was a couple ones in the UK that I checked out, and it's usually it's a lot of
sorry, a couple of ones where, sorry?
Oh, in the UK. That's as general as I be. I'm somewhere in the UK. Track me down. Sorry. Hopefully no one's out to get me. They Jilted Lover? No, long time ago. Anyway, what was I saying? So basically, it's you know, there's, you know, when we kind of would knock on the LGBTQIA2 as well, like they try to bogart or like force team themselves onto any issue, you know. And presumably because they care about the issue, but then certainly at a certain point, it's like, well, but we have to remember about our trans brothers and sisters and this, or we have to remember about our non-binary, you know, and the, you know, when it comes to, I don't know, saving the trees or whatever it is. And what I found with these groups is that some of them, there's a hardcore, like basically, I'm sorry, randos. I don't know. I mean, just like, you know, not cool like you and me, rebel, you know.
Yeah.
And then you have these old school guys, and all they want to do whenever anything pops up, they want to go and like hand out their socialist pamphlet or like, you know, invite people to, you know, their Leninist reading group.
Discussion group.
You know, and it's like, that's cool, but please, You know, and to me, it's so sad. It's like if your organization and movement can't generate anything on its own,
Mm.
I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
You know, you always see them. They have a little thing out, and they're just trying to basically just trying to recruit, and that's fine. But it's just like and I don't know. Not that I'm out there trying to build a party. I mean, I want someone else to build a party, and then I'll join it. I'm good at this type of stuff.
Thanks.
But starting some sort of revolutionary, a serious political party. Yeah, maybe Galloway. He's doing some. Maybe I'll look at that party. George Galloway.
Yeah, well, that was interesting because I didn't realize Galloway was turfy, and he's made a few kind of turfy comments.
Oh, he's smart. He's very direct. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because Kelly J was obviously very negative about like any success that he had. And I was like, yeah, because one of the things I really liked was a video she made before coming to Australia, and she's like, I'd shake hands with the devil himself if it meant like repealing the GRA. And it's like, well, okay, is George Galloway like worse than the devil then? Like yeah, it just seems like she really wanted it to be a her thing, maybe. And well, yeah, I don't know what the issue is, but she was comfortable when it was like mainly conservative and like finger wagging at the leftists for not joining in. But now that a left formation seemingly has like been more successful than she has in terms of at least gaining seats, yeah, it's not something she's at all interested in.
Well, he's done this before. He's been to the rodeo a couple times, but he gave a couple of tweets where he's basically like, look, we are totally fine with LGBT rights. Always have been. But he isn't going to play this game that somehow the typical, far and away, the typical person, it's like, still wants a straight families, this type of thing. So why pretend otherwise? That is kind of how also important for the reproduction of society, the men and women coming together, at least enough, so it's like, why this idea that somehow everything has to be, that LGBT has to be centered in everything, when it makes sense if it's, it makes sense if it's LGBT rights, of course, or if it's that type of issue, then if there's but in terms of the idea that, we have to be really careful about how we talk about families because not everybody, it's just like, are you, what?
Yeah.
It's like, should you be able to have an alternative family? Yes. Are we going to pretend that that's the norm? And what really surprised me, and he left it up, so he must have meant it, or meant to tweet it, is that because like some things are normal, like as the norm, as in like, and there's some things that are not. Why do we have to pretend that that LGBTQ plus is not the norm? Yeah, it's like, why? And that is a totally just objectively a true statement. But of course, a lot of people are like, and then you have people who have to distance themselves. Like, well, I'm still a member in this, but George and I have disagreements when it comes to the LGBTQ plus issues, and it's just like, okay. But true to form,
that's good. At least
it's like cancel each other and like say, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But it's difficult. Yeah. It's difficult. I mean, when you have all kinds of people, and I think that it's easy to point the finger at identity politics when it's somebody else doing it. But when it comes up in you, then it's a bit more difficult, So yeah, but that was I saw some of his things and like, this is smart because it's not like he's not going the right route, like it's wrong or any of this stuff. It's just like, well, we're a worker focused party. Far and away, most of us are heterosexual. Most of us want to have been married and want to get married, want to have families. If you don't, that's fine. But let's not pretend that somehow that's wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
That, and kind of pushing back when heteronormativity becomes a slur rather than just an observation, you have a problem. Now, you have to deal with minority rights. You have to deal with discrimination and all, of course, yes, I'm, totally for equality for LGBT people. Of course, yeah, totally. But you know, it's just interesting. And so he's really, that's why I like him, or I respect him. And again, it's not because I swallow everything whole, because he will come out and make these statements that most politicians are so, I don't know what they are, don't want to make. They just don't want to touch it. In that type of way, unless it's like, you know, red meat for one side or the other, if that's their thing, but if they're actually trying to go in between, then it's oh, someone's here. Patty P. Oh, okay. Sorry, Patty P's not talking to me. She's talking to somebody else.
No worries. I might actually have to go.
Why you said it. Or she.
Yeah, I might actually have to.
Please.
I might actually have to leave.
Okay.
I think we're getting into. Yeah, I had a couple hours.
Yeah. Is there anything on this? Well, is there anything on the flying on this Twitter thread that you want to talk about before you leave?
Specifically, yeah, I guess just check it out.
Name is Palestine. Scroll down. Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole list of them. There's about 30 different entries.
Did I miss one? Sorry.
Now it's
Sorry.
I'll try.
I bookmark that. I know.
That's okay.
Go ahead and keep on talking. I'm going to try to find it.
Sure. I'll see if I can find the end of it, because it sort of gets a little bit hard to follow.
I found it. Why is this doing weird things to me? Here it is, isn't it? Is this it? Flying spaghetti gender, similarly 30. This should be it.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's doing this.
You should be able to scroll up from.
Everybody turn away. I'm going into my. I'm going into my messages. Here we go.
Where? What one?
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Yeah. Is there a particular number? I'm in it now.
Right. Okay. You got it. Yeah. I guess. Oh well, one of the ones that was newer, which is the 30th one, which is the idea. Gender spiritualists and Zionists both argue that Jews and people who claim to be the opposite sex are a small minority and therefore couldn't be having an impact on the rights of a larger group. That was something that I encountered in a debate recently, where I was like, you know, the whole world supports Palestine, and the counterpoint was, well, there's a lot more Christians. Like, Jews are such a tiny portion of the population, but it's like, yeah, but like all across Latin America, like all South America, like supports Palestine. They're not exactly Muslim hotbed of Islam. Yeah, but there's so many of them that are the same, like the way that you know, the gender spiritualists wanted to take out Twitter and the Zionists wanted to take out TikTok, and they've both got their same, like, number 27 is they both pass legislation that'll restrict freedom of speech. The fake propaganda, number 25, is Zionists create fake Palestinian propaganda, like gender spiritualists create fake GC propaganda. So there's the fake rape is resistance post, and then the one next to it is like some Troon activists were putting razor blades under GC stickers and sticking them around and pretending like GCs had done it.
False flag things. False flag things. That's why, and speaking of, you know, that Zionism needs anti-Semitism, both actual and contrived. You know, but it's not good for them, and by them I mean like Jewish people in general, not only Israelis. But now when I see something, I'm like, yeah, right. I'm skeptical from the get-go. If someone's like, you know, putting up some sort of, oh look, the swastika was underneath the desk in primary school, or some shit like that, or look what happened, I'm like, yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised if the person who did that isn't doing it because they want to make the other side look bad. Now, I am not an idiot. I'm quite aware that there are actual anti-Semites there, and there's people who are using this issue to for that reason, just like there's people who use the gender ID issue to because actual being homophobic or whatever, gave them a lane to kind of express that in. And so, you see that every once in a while, especially with, what's his name, Jake Shields, I think. He's on Twitter. He has a pretty big following. I think he was what is those, MWA, like those full, I don't know, some sort of fighter dude. And
MMA. Yep.
Yeah. And he's really, he goes hard in the paint on Palestine, but every once in a while it veers off into this kind of then there's this conflation of Zionists and Bolsheviks and socialists. Right. it's like all of a sudden it's all like the same thing. And I'm like, what? It's like, okay, you have to be really kind of, a bit leery. Yeah. Because you're so raw,
but it's not as though there weren't people.
It's easy to start to lose your perspective. And to remind yourself that, it's about Zionism and that people can let go of ideologies. So it's not anything innate. But yeah. Okay. Well, let me see. Let me put you back on for a moment. Oops. No. Okay. So Rebel is in a different time zone and he has been with us for 2 hours and 11 minutes. It's flown by.
It's been really good.
I love Rebel in a comradely way, not in a
absolutely
positive you're a lady. Thank you so much for coming on. I think that our guests, there was a couple of people here, but they might have left. If anybody's here who wants to come on stage and talk to me, please join soon. I put the link to the StreamYard in our group chat. Turfy, but not genocidal in Twitter. But I know that people, it's Saturday, they have a thing going on. But thank you so much. I think this will be the first of other episodes that we do.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if I cut you off too many times. I'm just like, I want to say something.
Oh, not at all. Yeah. We'll have to do this a bunch more so we can really get into it. But
I've
it's been really fun.
And it can also be on your you've been in the trenches more on this. Your archive is way more organized and systematic than mine. Also, so before, let me bring this back up so we can plug you with my huge audience here. Let's see, where are we? Somewhere I have his things. Yeah.
There we go.
So Rebel, you can find him on X, Flying Gender, and YouTube is /YouTube/ at Rebel of Empires. Yes.
Yeah, you wanted to ask about that. It's just it's a Rage Against the Machine lyric.
Is it?
Okay. Yeah. Calm like a bomb. The line is hope lies in the smoldering rubble of empires. When I was much younger and way more lefty, I thought that was very, very cool, and it's been there ever since.
That sounds cool. And I have to say that I really appreciate your comedy, because for people who are watching, yesterday I was like, "Hey, is it okay if I use a picture of you for the slides?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so I'm like, "Okay, well," I go, "Do you want me just to use one from your site?" And he's like, "Oh, I'll send you one." So here's the first one he sends me. Let's see if I have a full page of this or not. Yeah. So this is the first one Rebel sends me.
That's from an old thumbnail.
Yeah, and it says pro homo, no pomo, and what he means is by obviously pro homo. I think people know what that is. So pro homosexuality, but not postmodernism. And it has gender messages on there.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, and he's like. Or there was another option, which was, let's see, this one.
This one. I love how perfectly the open eye is like right in the center. Yeah.
Like, my God, it was hilarious. And so I thought, because backstory, I know you have to go, but I've had some interesting exchanges with what I call BAMs, born again male Marxists.
Okay, yeah.
Online, we'll have to have a whole show about it. There's a show on that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, singularly, like stick up the ass. No, I mean, it's just crazy. And the only thing they can, like, if you say something or you ask them a question they don't like, they just want to like quote volume 1 to you. You know, like, oh, Marx said. And I have a friend also online. I think she's like, oh, you know, premature quoter. You know, like, and it's like, you know, coming out with, you know, Marx is not quite the flex that you want to be. And it's so hard because then it's really hard for me not to like lay out my, you know, like send in my CV or something. You know? I've forgotten more about Marx today than you'll ever know. And, you know,
yeah. Well, that's the thing, is that I sort of have like been involved in this kind of organizing and stuff, and have somewhat of a, you know, understanding of the issues, but like, yeah, you know, it sort of just informs my worldview. I'm not sort of, and
you're not a proselytizer.
Yeah. And so I think, you know, being silly with it and having like being, comedy is a way to kind of disarm people.
It's
and
like, you know, some people say
like, I'm not taking myself that seriously. If you get something beneficial out of this, then this is good. But like, you don't have to like, I don't want to hurt you. and
I'm not going to give you 10 books to read. I mean, I'm all for that. But just to this is a side note, because this is probably coming up next week. So I'm trying to poke fun at them, and they've actually been biting the hook. So that's good. But you know, tough love, because you know, we do have more in common than we don't. But and I was trying to figure, like, you know, I'm trying to have like a legitimate back exchange with these people. I'm like, what's going on with these? You know, and they come in there, it's just postmodern jabber intersection, blah, 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 blah. And Mark's saying this, your labor's valueless, and I'm just like, whatever, yo. And I was like trying to figure out, like, what is this? You know, it's because it's like, it can't be mega communists. I mean, that doesn't seem to, I mean, some of these guys they're usually, I call them Padawans. So they're Padawans of like Midwestern Marx or Jackson Hinkle or how's all and cool, man, you know, I'm not gonna shit in somebody's yard, but if they come in hot, you know, it's like, you know, I like that meme, if you come for the king, you best not miss, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it was just crazy. And I was like, what is going on here? And then all of a sudden it occurred to me, I'm like, BAMs, born again Marxists. You know, they have this book, and they have volume 1, especially volume 1. I mean, that's the main text. Fuck Old Testament. Volume 1 is
You know,
and then like also a couple of chapters, chapter 1 and whatever, and it's just like, and read this and read it. They have this book, and I'm like, you know, I'm great that you found the spirit, okay? And like, oh, it's BAMs, and there's a masculine thing in there, which is, you know, fine. I'm not against masculinity, so I've been calling them BAMs, born again male Marxists. Because it just made sense to me. I mean, the analogy just like, I'm like, okay, this is what's going on. And they've done nothing to disprove my my theory.
Cool. I really have to go.
I questioned something.
I'll catch you soon. I've got to go, like, unfortunately,
sorry.
like right now.
Sorry. Okay.
That's okay. That's okay.
Special guest, Rebel of Empires. He'll be a friend of the show, and maybe I'll be a friend of his show. We're gonna sort this crap out, huh, Rebel?
Yeah, definitely. We'll solve it. Thanks, Tara. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So that was 2 hours and 18 minutes. I don't think anybody is here. Okay. So I don't see anybody else in the studio. So I'm going to go ahead and close it off. I really appreciate those in sending me comments in YouTube, also because it gave me a chance to know that this worked. So I really appreciate that. And I think I showed everybody on screen who was that. So again, this is a Morbid Symptoms podcast. I am Tara Van Dyke. I've renamed myself. What is my name now? Oh yeah, this is my Twitter name, Doctress Tara Perfs Slayer. And I don't know if Doctress should be with an O or just the Doctress, but I don't know. It's a funny term. So I'm rambling on. I need to have another cup of coffee and see what's going on. Again, this has been the Morbid Symptoms podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll have a little bit of an outro video that shows where you can like and subscribe. For those of you who have a few dollars, if you want to donate to buy a coffee, all proceeds will be saved and will go to buy the podcast a better microphone and camera, perhaps. Anyway, thank you so very much. From the river to the sea, and women aren't men, and men aren't women. Peace out, people. Peace out.